One that is very easy to remember is that the name is divided into three: Scandinavia. Skan stands for the southern part of Sweden. Scania, maybe you've heard of the trucks. There's a brand called Scania. Then we have Din for Denmark. Navia, Norway. Finland, out of the picture. Okay, I'm sorry, I know you're going there tomorrow, but Finland and Iceland, they are part of the Nordic countries. So we have 5 Nordic countries, but 3 Scandinavians. And the language is very similar. I can speak to the Danes, the Norwegians. Of course, we try to avoid it, but we understand each other. It's almost the same language. Finnish is more Hungarian, totally different, and Icelandic is more of a tongue disease, but that's again a personal opinion. But you're not going there during this tour, so you're saved. Now I'm zooming closer. Sweden is a big country. If I compare Sweden to other parts of the world, it's as big as Spain. It's double the size of Great Britain. They have more than 60 million inhabitants. We have only 10.2 million, that's it. When most of the population lives from the middle part of the country and further south. So up in the north, it's extremely sparsely inhabited, 30-40 miles between the neighbors. And here we are. You see, a short introduction. We made it to Stockholm. Now, don't worry, I won't divide every word I mentioned during this tour, but this is quite important. Stock means timber or log, a piece of wood, and holm means island, the timber's island, or the island of the logs. And you'll see, Stockholm has many islands, actually 14, and it's woven or linked by approximately 54 bridges. That's why I think in many tourist books they will refer Stockholm to Venice of the North. The only difference is that Venice is sinking, Stockholm is rising. We have this rebound, and every 100 years the land of this city rises about half a meter, 1.5 feet. So dear guests, enough looking at me. I will sit down, enjoy the scenery. Don't get too comfortable, because within about 10 minutes from now we're going to leave the coach and visit our town hall, the city hall, which is a building that we would really like to show you. Okay, so get your whistle. And now we're welcomed into the first island of the 14. This island is called the King's Island, or in Swedish, Kungsholmen. You see Holm like Stockholm, and it's the second largest. Actually your hotel is on the mainland, so we just crossed the bridge and we're already on an island. And there are 14 islands, and every island has its standard. So I have no idea where you're from, but I can only assume that every major city has areas: upper class, working class, middle class. In Stockholm, it's actually divided by islands. So you can actually say that the King's Island, where we are now, is more of the middle class, but the prices are just going up. So people, to find reasonable rents, they move further out to the suburbs because the ripples are expanding. So this island, for 15 years ago, you could easily rent an apartment for 2 people, but now the prices are way high. This whole area is becoming very expensive. Now, when it comes to traffic, because that's something that will follow us all day, we drive on the right-hand side of the road. It wasn't always this way. Until 1967, we drove on the left side. And on the 3rd of September that year, we switched from left to right. And the amazing thing, there were no fatal accidents. We called that day H Day, the letter H, because H stands for höger, which in Swedish means right. So we had half a year to prepare, and on that day they switched the signs and everything worked. And that's something about us Swedes. You give us a new law, we obey. New tax, we pay. You know, we are born free, taxed to death. And that's something I will also try to touch during this tour, that this country is driven by the taxes we pay. And on the right-hand side, we have a school that we're passing by right now, this massive building. It's Kungsholmen's Gymnasium. So that's on the right side. But if you look to your left, do you see that cliff? That's something that will also follow us all day, because Stockholm doesn't have any fertile ground. Everything is this solid rock. It doesn't crack easily when we have changes in weather. And most of the streets we'll be traveling upon were actually blasted with the help of a Swedish invention. The dynamite, invented by Alfred Nobel. So everything is rock. Even if you find Stockholm very green and lush, just so you know, if you dig in the soil maybe 1.5 feet, about half a meter, you will reach the solid rock. Now, when I mentioned dynamite, maybe some of you thought, whoa, Alfred Nobel, but let's be clear. Alfred Nobel was a pacifist. He was against war, and he honestly believed if you make a weapon powerful enough, people will think twice before they fight each other. And of course, things did not turn out the way he hoped, so that's one of the main reasons why we have the Nobel Prize today. And another mentioning of the war, during this tour, there is something you won't see, which is ruins. While I'm pointing at him, and you will see that there's sometimes 2-3 men walking together with their baby trolleys, and that's one of the things here in Sweden. You pay a lot of taxes, but you do get quite a lot in return. So one example is, when you give birth to a child, you're entitled to 480 days maternity or paternity leave. And you can take those days until your child is 8 years old. So normally what happens is that the mother, in most cases, takes the first crucial months. And of course, the father will time it to summer, Mondial, Wimbledon, Olympics. You get 80% of your lost income, and you can be with your child. Actually, the first 10 days when a child is born, even the father can be home for 10 days and he gets 100% of his lost income, because we believe the first 10 days are vital to be with your baby, the essence, the closeness, and who knows, it might affect the relationships years ahead. Now, we made it. City Hall, the government of Stockholm. This is where we leave the coach. We have about a 3-minute walk.
Okay, it got start raining in Stockholm now. 咁先至似樣 now more like it. Rainy and gloomy Stockholm now. Okay, 9:20. Back to the bus.
Right side, at the bottom of the tower, nobody's buried there. But the architect, as I said earlier, was so certain that the church that has the founder of Stockholm buried there will be more than happy to give some of his relics to a town hall. And of course they said no. Now, who's the founder? He was a vicar to the king. The king was his son. And we're talking about the 1200s or 13th century. And he was the same vicar that puts a lock to the lake. You will see there's a black Gothic see-through spire, which is the oldest building in Stockholm from the 1200s, the Church of Nobility, and it's located on an island called the Island of Nobility. And now you can also see on the right, there's a tiny little island with trees surrounding it. That's the smallest island of them all, Stream Island. We can see now the old town to the right, across the bridge, and you see the backside of the House of Parliament, which is a rounded building with 2 poplar trees. So you get to see 4 islands, and now we're on the mainland actually. The thing is, if you look at the silhouette of the city, you notice that Stockholm is very flat. Most of the building that breaks the silhouette are church spires. We used to have this fundamental law that said no building is allowed to be taller than the royal palace. Now God is above the king. So you see the church spires. But of course, later on we got politicians that are above God. And so look at the City Hall. That's a good example of a tower that is way higher or taller than the Royal Palace in the Old Town. We're passing by the Sheraton Hotel to the right. And soon we're going to turn right into a street called Vasa Street. So that's a name you hear quite a lot when you come and visit us here in Stockholm. Now remember I said I'll say a few words about relationships, because in Sweden you don't have to be married to get all the benefits. If I have a partner and I've been living with my partner for at least a year, which means all the bills arrive at the same address, we are recognized as sambo. Sambo means together living. If we have kids together, they will benefit from everything as well. There's another version called sarbu. Sarbu means you're a couple, but you live separately. You have 2 homes and kids in common. Before I continue about the matter, on the left side, we're passing the central station. You can take trains from here to the rest of Europe or to the north of Sweden. And notice there's not much graffiti on the walls. I guess you saw that Stockholm is quite clean. There are not many tags. And since I know that Copenhagen, they have a lot of graffiti in the city center, but here we have 0 tolerance. On the right hand side, we're about to pass an Art Nouveau style building, which is the Royal Post Office. You'll see the entrance, which is so ornate compared to the building we're passing now on the left side, which is a typical functionalistic design. Look how basic it looks. Compare to the one following it now on the left side, where you see Burger King and Espresso House. You see those rounded windows, all the details. We lost all that from the 30s of last century. We had an exhibition in Stockholm called Accept. Now the Stockholmers have to accept a new way of living. No more small apartments, few balconies, one building is attached to the other. The idea was that every apartment or office will get the 3 basic elements, which is, or at least that's how they consider them: air, light, and green. So you have bigger windows in this functionalistic style. But we start to miss the old style because we don't like those straight lines, but it's an opinion thing. You know, the city has to get modern, and you'll soon see some more example of that as we get along. So we're turning right into a street called the King Street. It used to be the main shopping street before. They still have heating systems in the sidewalk, so wintertime when it snows, it melts rather fast, and people can enter the stores without worrying about black ice. But we're going to drive through the city center, the new one, and when the new area was built, this street lost a bit of its popularity. So we're on the King Street, and shortly we'll be crossed by the Queen's Street, called Drottningholm. So it's a pedestrian street. So now when the block ends, you'll see a building with scaffoldings on your left. On the left side of the coach, that's the end of the Queen Street. But if you will look now to the right, you'll see a very straight street that goes all the way down to the Old Town. For a man, it takes about 20 minutes walk. For a woman, a day or two, especially if you have black belt in shopping, that's where you want to be. Now, dear guests, this lovely square here on the right-hand side is filled with black limousines on the 10th of December, because the blue building that we are passing by right now, that's the concert hall. That's where the Nobel Prizes that we give are given. And actually, you can see on both sides, there's a blue T with white round circle around it. Did you miss that? You'll have more options along the way. Every time you see this blue T, it stands for subway or tunnel track. Stockholm is the only city that has a subway system. We have 100 stations under. It's about 100 feet below us, and because everything is granite, it's easy to have the subway system below. But the moment you leave the city center, they're on the surface. So it's called subway, but it's on the ground. So of the 100 stations we have, half of them are underground. But all the new stations that we're about to build, there are planned to be 17 more. They will all be deep underground because it's cheaper, it doesn't make noise, it doesn't separate communities with a rail in between. So that's the future. Everything will go underground. So the concert hall is to the right, and now we're getting closer to the new modern city center. So don't laugh, but we call the buildings that you'll drive by on the right-hand side skyscrapers. I know you have to put all 5 of them above each other to get one skyscraper, but we call them the 5 matchboxes. They were built actually in the 50s. The idea was that people will live in these buildings here on the right. There are gardens on the roof, but at the end it's only offices that occupy these buildings, and of course some restaurants, and there's even a museum at building number 5. It's a new museum since 3 years ago called the Avicii Experience. We had a Swedish DJ by the name Avicii that unfortunately ended his own life at the age of 28. So one of the members of the pop group ABBA sponsored this new museum, which is right in this building around the corner that you see here to your right. And now we made it to the Circle Square. I know it sounds confusing. I didn't say circle, circle. It's named after a Swedish sculptor that used to have his workshop right here, and everything was pulled down when the subway system was built, because the first stations, we didn't have the equipment to drill in the mountains, so it was the Berlin method. You make a deep crater, you put the rails, and you cover it. So the subway is right under the street. You have the obelisk on the left side representing the Nordic lights, the Aurora Borealis. It has about 80,000 crystals. The idea was to have it in light green colors, but we were afraid it might confuse the drivers, so it's only illuminated in bright colors. And on the right-hand side of the coach, we're passing by the Culture House, Kulturhuset, that has theaters, cartoon library, which is quite unique. Let's go after the park, circle the old town. I want you to see. Now, have you noticed there's a lot of traffic in town, but it's very quiet. It's very rare that cars use their horns. Now, there's another thing. Even if it's a sunny day, the cars will always have their lights on. In Sweden, it doesn't matter if it's summer or winter. The minute you turn on the engine, you have to turn on the lights. And Volvo were the first car that had it built in. So when you start the engine, you can't drive, back then you couldn't drive a Volvo in pitch darkness. The seal on his head, or is it? because he's the king that is the reason we lost the superpower. His name is Charles the 12th. He thought he could win against Peter the Great of Russia. It didn't turn out that way. So if I told you Sweden was a great power back in the 1600s, we lost everything thanks to him in the early 1700s. So now we're going to circle a bit. We come back the other way. There's another equestrian statue here on the right, and that's Gustavus Adolphus II, the same king that commissioned the Vasa ship that we're about to visit shortly. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is on the left. And I'll do some name droppings now, because when we're going to turn left, you'll notice the sign of IKEA. It's an enclosed pedestrian street, but it's also the area of the head office of a Swedish company called Spotify. There's an app on your phone maybe for music. So when we turn left now, the head office to Spotify is number 13, and you'll see IKEA at the corner. But just so you know, when it comes to facilities on your free time as well, if you will look now on the right side, you'll see the sign saying Gallerian. You'll see it now. If you walk in through these doors where IKEA is, it's an enclosed pedestrian street. So if you want to avoid the rain, you'll have everything. It's a mall, exactly, and they have very nice facilities inside the moment you walk through those doors. So you see, it's not far away from where we conclude the morning tour.